So the French television.
Bonjour à tous, on se retrouve à Paris, capitale des États modifiés de conscience, à l'occasion du premier colloque aux frontières de la vie sur la conscience et l'invisible, organisé avec le concours des éditions Trédaniel. Et on a aujourd'hui le bonheur d'avoir avec nous le docteur Raymond Moody, philosophe et psychiatre, pionnier des NDE, qui a consacré près de 60 ans de sa vie aux recherches sur la vie après la vie, et le docteur Eben Alexander, neurochirurgien, est victime d'une NDE après une méningite réputée mortelle. Enfin, réputée parce qu'il en est revenu avec la carte du paradis. Rien que ça. Alors, si vous aussi vous cherchez un sens à la maladie et à votre vie, suivez-nous. On va commencer par demander à nos invités de nous éclairer sur les incidences de ces expériences de mort imminente, les fameuses NDE, sur la science dite dure.
Scientific proof of an afterlife is not yet possible. And to me it always seemed that the question of life after death was not a scientific question. So in the past I would have said that we can't have a proof of an afterlife, but now I'm not so sure. I think that the essential difficulty is that of bridging the world of scientific inquiry with the what we would think of as religious or spiritual issues. And I do think absolutely now that can be done. The book that I'm publishing here in France now is on that topic. The concept that holds the two ends of the spectrum together would be the notion of the unintelligible. So from the point of view of scientific inquiry, the difficulty with the notion of an afterlife is that it doesn't have a determinable, intelligible meaning that can be put to a scientific test. But I think that once we understand that the unintelligible itself has a certain logic, then there's no difficulty in bridging the scientific and the religious.
From my point of view, this is really all about what's called the mind-body discussion. That is, the relationship between the brain and the mind, between conscious experience and the physical brain. And in that sense, I think that science can certainly be part of it. But we have to realize the universe is not going to divulge these very deep secrets and tailor it just to our scientific method. We need to pay attention to the stories that people tell. There are two main examples in clinical neuroscience that the brain is not producing consciousness at all. Terminal lucidity, which occur in elderly patients, especially demented people as they get close to death. They can have moments of great clarity, reflection, insight, communication, often at a time when they see souls of departed loved ones there to escort them over, and then they leave this world. Those kind of things have no explanation.
You know, what Eben said reminded me of something about Thomas Jefferson, who's a figure in both our histories, right? Mm-hmm. And Jefferson being a man of reason at the time. And I think about 1815, a huge meteorite broke up over New England and the pieces were scattered, and two professors from Yale went and retrieved the pieces and brought them back for analysis and so on. And this was published in a scientific paper. And so Jefferson was asked his opinion of the paper. He said, "Gentlemen, I would rather believe that those two Yankee professors would lie than believe that stones fell from heaven." And the interesting thing about that is that by the scientific thinking of 1815, he was exactly right, because David Hume had pointed out that to accept testimony on something like that is unacceptable. And I think we're in a similar situation now, where the testimonies of all these people, on the face of it, are rather unbelievable and incomputable by our minds. In France, a few years later, there was a huge meteorite fall and a bunch of cows were killed out in the fields and so on, and at that point it became undeniable. So sometimes we have to realize that what people say does deserve serious consideration. Stones can't fall from the sky because there are no stones in the sky.
Quelle est l'incidence des recherches sur les NDE en ce qui concerne le domaine de la santé?
From my point of view, it brings up the whole question again of mind and brain in the relationship, and it has to do with our notion of free will. How much do we actually, are we able to influence our health? And I would say we have tremendous influence on my health. And having a severe gram-negative bacterial meningoencephalitis that all of the medical literature would tell you should have killed me, and it at least left me a vegetable in a nursing home, how did I have this recovery? And that is a lot of where NDEs are going in terms of teaching us about a much deeper aspect to our existence, and how there is a major influence that we can have on our health, to the point where we can have medical miracles occur. I think Anita Moorjani is another very good example. I mean, no doctor would say that she had more than 2 hours to live when she checked into that emergency room. And so I think healing, especially as we truly assimilate the lessons of NDEs and what they're trying to tell us about consciousness and the influence of soul on our life course, is something that will be a revolution in our ability to heal, that will come from a much richer understanding of NDEs and what they're telling us.
I think also the knowledge about near-death experience can turn back on itself, in the sense that so many patients over the years were having these experiences and didn't know what to make of it. And I think now that we have medical knowledge of it, that we can reassure the patients that they're not alone, that this is a common part of the dying process. Terminally ill patients, for example, have a right to take hope from these experiences, that the process of death is actually a transition into some other realm.
Vous attachez une importance particulière au rôle de la conscience. Quel est-il exactement?
I would say consciousness is all that is.
Yeah.
That one has to realize this world around us that we experience, something I call the supreme illusion. All we're truly experiencing is a model within mind. The light coming from you, coming from the distant stars, hitting my retina, sound waves hitting my eardrum, all of that then gets converted into information traveling through the brain. And the thing is, we have no concept of it ever coming into mind at any place in the brain at all. Important for people to realize that the only thing they've ever experienced since before they were born is the inside of their own consciousness. Therefore, it is a big question what this is. I would say that consciousness, the mystery of it, is the awareness of existence. And whether you're talking about the measurement paradox in quantum physics, or about the hard problem of consciousness, which in philosophical circles, probably the deepest question known, both those questions is centered right on the awareness of the observer.
To me, one of my first realizations when I was a child was the amazing experience of consciousness. And even as a very young child, I realized that my consciousness exists now. The problem from me has always been the external world. I mean, consciousness, yes, obviously is. To me, the problem was that all I can know of the external world is recurrent patterns in my consciousness. So to me, consciousness is the primary reality. From there, I have to work out to the possibility of an external world. And I'm still not completely confident in all those steps. I think the primary reality is consciousness.
On a longtemps pensé que la matière primait sur l'esprit et que le cerveau produisait la conscience et produisait cette chose immatérielle dont on pense aujourd'hui exactement le contraire, à savoir qu'elle survit à la matière et au cerveau. Est-ce que ça a des conséquences dans le domaine de la santé?
Physicality is an illusion, but it's a very persistent illusion. To me, illness is part of the illusion, and that, I know that's a very bizarre thought, but I regard an illness as a specific alteration in the state of one's consciousness. Every illness, if you think about it, alters consciousness in its own way. Even when you have a cold, right, your consciousness sort of goes to the back of your throat and you feel everything through it. Or in the more extreme cases, with multiple sclerosis, for example, people report almost mystical states of consciousness. So again, I would have to say that I look at it the other way around, that health is something that we have here as a sort of an illusionary concept that we have to deal with. And it's Plato said that life itself is a kind of illness, and I see what he means there. That
One of the most beautiful gifts of my journey, of my NDE, was a realization. I often kind of phrase it, all is well. In other words, all is well, as it should be. Another way of saying that is that the challenges in our life, whatever hurdles, whether you're talking illness or injury or what have you, are actually in many ways gifts. But they can only really be seen as gifts as we see our existence as spiritual beings. So that, in other words, physical, mental, emotional health, all first and foremost involves spiritual health. And the spiritual health involves our seeing this picture of our existence with all of its imperfections as something that are a guideway for us to live, recovering the divine love of the creative source of the universe for us, and living that love and manifesting it for others, I would say is a recipe for healing, for becoming whole. Health is just another way of saying complete, wholeness. And that's what our life is. When you look at this as a journey kind of the soul, facing the hardships, because the hardships are gifts. They are the stepping stones that allow our souls to grow and advance. So seeing all of illness and injury is just a way of seeing from a broader perspective the spiritual journey that we are on. Pray for a certain outcome, but that outcome is really the best for all involved in the soul journey. And it may or may not involve physical healing from a given illness in this incarnation. But it's a much broader view of healing and health and acknowledgement of the spiritual nature of our existence, and that those hardships can actually be stepping stones, as mine was, a beautiful example of how my soul journey was enhanced through the illness that I faced and came back from.